I'm experimenting with an app on my iPad that lets me record and talk, so you guys can tell me if you find this useful or not. But here's some notes on the Applia homework from Chapter 3. So in question 1, Jake and Latasha are farmers. Each has a 12-acre plot of land. I don't know why they didn't make that 10. The math would have been a lot easier. That means that Jake can produce 40 bushels of rye per acre times his 12 acres. So he can produce a total of 480 bushels of rye. He can produce 8 times 12, or 96 bushels in total of corn if he uses all of his land to produce corn. Obviously, he can produce some rye and some corn, but it's always good to get the outsides here. Has the absolute advantage in both corn and rye. He can produce more corn and more rye than Latasha. Here, 480, that would be that 4 times 40 bushels of rye times 12 acres, so 480 bushels total if he uses all of his land to produce rye. And he's up here at 96 if he uses all of his bushels of corn, all of his acres of land to produce corn. You can do exactly the same calculation to find out what Latasha can produce. So you can see on the graph that Jake has an absolute advantage in the production of rye, and Jake also has an absolute advantage in the production of corn. To figure out opportunity cost, you have to go back to that table again. So Jake can produce 40 bushels of rye per acre, or 8 bushels of corn per acre. That means there's a 5-to-1 ratio between those two. So whenever he produces 1 bushel of corn, he gives up 5 bushels of rye. Latasha, on the other hand, can produce 28 bushels of rye per acre, or 8 bushels of corn. So she gives up 4 bushels of rye whenever she produces 1 bushel of corn. So Jake has a higher opportunity cost. He gives up 5 of producing corn than Latasha does. And that means that Latasha has a comparative advantage in the production of corn, and Jake has a comparative advantage in the production of rye. So I want to look at question 2 also, because question 2 is relatively complex as well. So question 2 gives us two countries, Arcadia and Felicidad. This time we're producing either rye or jeans. So let's look at how this question works out. So here, Arcadia produces 8 bushels of rye per hour of labor, or 16 pairs of jeans per hour of labor. So every time Arcadia produces a bushel of rye, they give up 2 pairs of jeans. That's 16 divided by 8, basically, is how I got that. On the other hand, in Felicidad, whenever they can produce 5 bushels of rye per hour, or 20 pairs of jeans. So that means whenever they choose to produce 1 bushel of rye, they give up 4 pairs of jeans. So Arcadia has a comparative advantage in the production of rye because they give up fewer than Felicidad. And Felicidad, if you do the same exact thing backwards, it turns out they have a comparative advantage in the production of jeans. So what happens if our countries specialize? They have 4 million labor hours apiece. It said that earlier in the problem. So if they produce only, so the country that has a comparative advantage produces only the good that they have the comparative advantage in, we end up with 32 million bushels per month of rye and 80 million of pairs per month of jeans. So Arcadia, how I got that, Arcadia was producing rye. So 8 rye per hour times 4 million labor hours gets you the 32 million. Felicidad could produce 20 pairs of jeans per hour times 4 million labor hours gets you 80 million pairs of jeans. So production has actually increased overall to do that. So I looked at the table to get this last one. I looked at the table on the original data and added up total production. So if we look to see if using comparative advantage and specializing the good in which they have comparative advantage actually did mean that everybody got to use more, let's see what happened. So Arcadia is producing bushels of rye, and they, as you recall, produced 32 million bushels of rye. Felicidad is producing genes, and they could produce 80 million bushels of genes. So each country is producing only one good now. And then they trade. So they trade at 18 to 54. So in the case of Arcadia, they exported 18 million bushels of rye. That means they had 14 left. So 32 minus 18 gets you your 14. Before they produced 8. Now they're producing 14. They get an increase in consumption of 6. They're not producing any genes at all, but they traded their 18 million bushels of rye for 54 million pairs of genes. And that means that they get an increase in consumption of 6 because before they got 48. Now they have 54. So you can see an increase in consumption in both rye and genes for Arcadia. Same exact analysis for Felicidad. And same thing, they end up with 3 million bushels of rye more than they had in the first place, and they end up with 6 million pairs of genes more than they had in the first place. So let me know if this kind of thing is useful for you, and if it is, then I will go ahead and record some more. Thanks.